Right, welcome back to Morning Live. Dr. Labanji Sang is here with me in studio, City Lecturer at the HOD Economics Department, Daystar University. Now, I want to talk about the usual borrowing by the Kenya and as a government, and you know very well the other day, World Bank approved a huge amount of money to the economy. That means now generically the government is saying it's just going to focus on the Big Four agenda and of course setting the loopholes as far as now the budget is concerned, but still it's borrowing at the end of the day. Dr. Good morning.
Thank you for
all right, karibu sana.
Asante.
Now, the issue of borrowing has been the norm in the country, and not so many people are somehow happy with it because now it trickles down for actually to the taxpayers. Now, this time round, things are a bit different. Now, it's for development, still the Big Four agenda, the loopholes in the economy, the budget, everything. The other ones maybe from China, we had SGR number 2, things didn't go as expected. But now, look, at the end of the day, we're talking about borrowing. Where are you going from here?
Well, just before I talk to that, remember the government doesn't have a lot of choices.
Okay.
And from where you've come so far, the economy has advanced.
Okay.
The economy is dynamic, is more dynamic.
Okay.
There's a lot of pressure for Kenya to reach a certain level of development, which is comparable to other high-income economies, so that at least we can even attract investment from other countries.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of huge demand. The county government is also in place, so we are running a new system of governance.
Yeah.
We also have the middle class, which is also upcoming.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of pressure from left, right, and center. And so the government doesn't have much choice because we don't have that money.
Okay.
So the question as to whether we need to borrow more, we don't have a choice because that money is not there. But there are issues that will arise in as far as the continued borrowing, especially by this regime.
Okay.
Yeah. So talk in terms of the numbers. From 2012, you can see the debt to GDP ratio has been about 38%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right now we're talking about 57%.
Okay.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah.
Almost double.
Yeah.
And so as a Kenyan, we are worried because the appetite for the government has been to borrow is actually been increasing from time to time.
Okay.
So which means that somehow we've got to repay these debts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how we're going to do this is now the big question that every Kenyan is asking. So are we going to live in a cycle of loan repayment period after period? Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, that's crazy because now when you talk about legacy, you know, I want to leave the office having done this, having done that, but already there were some calculations made that an unborn child owes the government at least around 300 shillings, maybe maximum, just approximately 300 shillings, minimum 100 bob. Right now, it seems like it's increasing also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's increasing also because now Chinese will want their money, World Bank will be on our radar. So, looking at the consistency and the economic sense of even the future generation, it means we are now still kind of in trouble also. It will take a long time for us because now we always know about the loan being taken, but we don't know about the loan being finished. You know what I mean? Right?
Yes.
Like, are we done repaying the loan? We never hear of such.
Well, I agree with you. As a Kenyan, we are worried. We are worried especially for our children. We are worried because you're trying to create a legacy as a government. Yeah, you brought in the issue of the government that is trying to leave a legacy in terms of the Big Four. It's a fantastic idea. I actually subscribe to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So because at the end of the day, we are looking at the long-term vision of the economy in Vision 2030, which is a gradual process. And so Big Four is a good idea. So the question as to whether the government must get there by, say, this regime by 2022. So I think we needed to have given this a second thought.
Okay.
That can we really achieve all these four in the next 3 years? Well, if I had 10 years, then I can say yes.
Yeah.
But now we have 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think right now, the government needs to rethink. To me, if we can say that let's just fulfill 2 of these.
Okay.
And to me, let's talk about food security. Let's talk about universal health. access to everyone.
Yeah, yeah,
And then the other two, we can, manufacturing can come third to me.
yeah.
Yeah, so let's move manufacturing to some extent.
Okay, okay.
Then let's look at housing to some little extent, so
Okay.
that by the time the government is exiting in 2022, we have something, you know, food security secure. I mean, when you have food security, we have universal healthcare. That's something.
Yeah.
And then we have laid the framework for the other two. And then from there, when the next regime comes in, we move the country forward like that.
Okay.
So in terms of prioritization, that is, I think at this moment we need to rethink and refocus.
Okay.
Yeah, because if we have to tell me that let's finance all these four and let's run them through for the next 3 years, well, I think we shall keep borrowing and borrowing.
Yeah, because we are crumbling. Now, Turkana, the other day just we had the issues with drought, food issues, whereby now you guys were dying. Some numbers, though the government was trying to kind of play around with the figures, but looking at even the money we're taking and the billions sometimes we promise to be wired to that side of the country. Looking at this cycle, it's so clear that another day, you see right now there are floods.
True.
The floods, and then next time we have maybe this period of drought, there'll be a problem, and it's all in the government's eyes. But still, when these billions are being borrowed, we really don't know how they're used. Now, the auditor will come up one day, you hear or see on the dailies like 70 maybe million were unaccounted for. Now you wonder, what is really happening? Who are these people giving the mandate to now? You take care of this money. Now, you might be borrowing, but who's handling the money? That's a big question.
All right. Well, I'm also worried about the issue of the drought, the issue of the floods, the crises that come from period to period. And when we are in this kind of a situation where you're borrowing, and every time you're borrowing, then the question is, what is our capacity to respond to such crises? You can see that it's weakened. Yeah, we cannot be able to address it fully, and even in the long term. It worries us as Kenyans as when we see people dying of hunger, people dying because of floods and things like that. Yet we have a government that is been mandated to take care of them. And so it pains us as Kenyans when you look at this. Now, the issue of drought, if a normal farmer in Kitale who has huge acres of land in maize plantation is in problems because the government or maybe can't get good returns. So if that person that has that capacity to produce is in problem, think about that person that doesn't even have a piece of land. So it tells you that food security to Kenya is very critical. Now, the second thing, as far as your point is concerned, is the issue of how is this money used. And so we still have a lot of loopholes in the system. We have money, yes, channeled to such projects, Galana, for example, and other projects you can think about, the dams. So when it comes to the use and accountability of the same, that is now the question. The government has a lot of responsibility to really demonstrate to Kenyans that we can trust it in terms of use of these funds. So if the government can seal all corruption loopholes, any leakages that exist in the system, then it can hand some little of some bit of trust. And so therefore, when it comes to the whole issue of corruption, I think to me it's more of a priority. It's not enough to have the courts, to have the legal system. What the government is not doing is to invest in the people, the character, the values that are already disintegrating in the system. So those values are the ones that will inform that I have a responsibility over 100 shillings. I have a responsibility over this little amount of money, because at the end of the day, it's not mine. It is meant to help that Kenyan that is suffering.
Now, looking at some governments, let's take a good example like the UK government. US, let's just sample them. And sometimes when a candidate comes out to campaign for office, they always promise about putting something aside for the unemployed. You see, one of the positives that are very surprising, actually, Donald Trump, he's really worked on that, and unemployment rates in the US is kind of reduced. Now, most of our leaders think of infrastructure. They think of development. They think of structures just to make sure at least we have one building there, one road there, one tarmac over there, expansion of a road somewhere. But look, the people using the road don't have anything in their pockets.
True.
Now, what do you think about prioritizing for the young people also? Because now these budgets need to now create also other avenues for to generate income for the young people. So an employment, budget, borrowing, but these people are forgotten. Yeah.
Well, okay. To respond to that, most of these advanced economies have systems that work. Their leadership is responsible.
Okay.
In Africa, we have power hungry, and that is a problem.
Yeah, that's a
So
problem.
when it comes to, unfortunately, economic decisions in any economy is run by the political class. That's the unfortunate bit.
Yeah.
We can have the best economists, you can have the best planners in the country, but at the end of the day, who has a bigger say is the political class.
Yeah.
And you see, these people have, from experience, we can see the way they want to cling to power.
Yeah.
At the expense of anything. And so therefore, it is because of that ideology where we come from that when I hold office, it is about me. I need to make a name for myself. And so therefore, going forward, like I said before, can we shift our values? Can we go back to where we were before, where we can now entrench some of these values either in the education sector, in the churches? Let's think about the values that we create in the family setups, in the society, so that as we grow up, as we take responsibilities in office, we become accountable to everyone.
Yeah.
Now, the other question you raise is about the youth.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that because look at the composition of the population. What proportion constitute the youth? More than half.
It's true that.
So to say.
Yeah.
And so these people must be created. I mean, the government must create a platform for them to be able to earn an income. How much do we invest in our capacities to be entrepreneurial? Do we have, is the government creating that kind of a mechanism where they can access financing?
Yeah.
And if so, to what extent has this been achieved? You see, right now, as we borrow to invest and invest in infrastructure, it's good. It helps to create opportunities and things like that. But at the end of the day, on the other hand, we have to repay some of this debt.
Okay. Interesting conversation right here because we can't escape from this. We're taking a short break right in Morning Live. When we come back, you want to talk about priorities now. We might be taking the millions or billions of shillings as far as loan is concerned from the World Bank, from the Chinese. But we've talked about where the money goes. But when you come back, the priorities, because at the end of the day, we need to know where the money goes to, not the auditor coming up one day from nowhere and the daily is saying $1 billion or so can't actually be accounted for. All that coming to you after a short break. All right, welcome back to Morning Live. Dr. Laban Chisang is with me in studio. He's a senior lecturer in the HOD Economics Department, Daystar University, and we're talking about the issue of borrowing. Recently, you understand the government borrowed a serious amount of money from World Bank, and as it is, priorities. Now, when we talk about priorities, let's focus on ostensive priorities because now you channel money to something very expensive which you don't need actually. So the ostensive angle of all these priorities. Now, Doc, when you talk about ostensibility of even the government trying to come in and pump money on a project that is very expensive but you don't need it. But at the same time, money still trickles down to that side. What do you think about all this?
Well, when it comes to public expenditure, prioritization is very critical.
Yes.
You've got to see where we are and we say, to what extent do we need this? What is it that we need at the moment?
Yeah.
What can wait? Over the last 5-6 years, the SGR has been the talk of town.
Yeah.
That on one side we need it, on the other side we don't need it. It's very expensive, and that's why the government is doing this in phases. So, in terms of infrastructure, it's very critical to open up areas, to create employment, business opportunities for the people.
Yeah.
But now, when it comes to this, you see, we've got to distinguish between growth and development.
Yeah.
At this stage, we are trying to focus more on growth. That we want to open up areas so that people can invest.
Yeah.
We have investment going up so that we can grow. But at the end of the day, are we developing? That is a critical
That's the
thing.
big question, actually.
Because development implies that the Wanjiku gets something reasonable. That person is lifted from the economic state that he or she is to a higher level. Now, to me, from where I sit, the SGR is a good idea.
Okay.
I think at the moment where we've reached, we can pause and say, the far we have come, that let's see how it goes. But
it generates something, then we expand it what is actually.
Yes, because actually, if the government can tell us how much is being generated out of this so far,
okay,
is it worth the investment?
Yeah.
So that going forward, you can now see that this is a viable project that generates more income, and so it can help us to repay the debt.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to keep pumping more money, yet people don't have. People don't have access to universal health. People are dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are things that are more of important to the ordinary Kenyan compared to maybe having a fancy road network and things like that.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that we don't need it. We actually need it as an economy.
Yeah.
But you see, when it comes to we've got to think and say, who benefits from this SGR?
Okay.
The direct benefit will be those who get employed, those who live around maybe the stations, the centers, and things like that. And perhaps it also creates a good face for an investor.
Yeah.
That, wow, the infrastructure is good. But in terms of the ordinary Kenyan, they may not be able to understand or maybe figure out how they're going to benefit directly from this. So to me, something that improves the livelihood of the ordinary Kenyan, because we talk about over 80% of us that about 50-70% that live below the poverty line.
Yeah.
And so those are the people that we care most about. And these are the people that keep voting for us.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you cannot be able to address things or give that which will benefit them in one way or the other, then we are not going far.
It's true that.
True.
Now,
So
now we have the new currency notes being introduced in the country, and trust me, it's put so many people in some sort of panic mode, and money laundering. There's so many things actually just come in play. Now, looking at the benefits, we have the pros and cons of all this. It's kind of short term, short notice. Some are even saying it needs to come in sooner than what was said. What do you think of the idea?
Well, to me, the idea is very good.
Okay.
The thought process and the execution is brilliant, because at the end of the day, we've been having the issue of the wash, money laundering, a lot of it. So we had people many people have not brought their finances or the money into the system, and so therefore it has come as a surprise.
Yeah, it's true that.
So the intention of the government through the CBK is quite on point. That we want to trap these guys, force them to bring this money into the system. The suspicion of corrupt money that is not brought into the system, that is not circulating, will be curbed through this. So that's on the good side of it. And of course,
sure. In fact, so many people are saying that the supply of cash in this country in the next 1-2 months will be out of this world. Because now, looking at even the cautiousness of operating with cash, what do you advise? Because we have so many other ways.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, we expect for the next 3 months or so, there will be huge volumes of transactions. Cash transactions in particular, because all the millions that people have been staying within the mattresses at home will now be brought into the system. And so therefore, going forward, expect that there will be a huge volume of transactions, which implies that a lot of money will be in circulation.
Yeah.
So prospects of prices going up is very high,
Very high.
in the process, because someone will just buy a building,
Yeah,
30 million cash
It's true that. Yeah.
from nowhere. And so, but so that raises a question for the policymaker, the central bank. Can you, more than just doing this, what other measures have you done so that when I take my 20 million to the bank, I'm questioned?
Yeah.
So that
it's
is
a
one thing.
policy. The
It's
banks.
yeah.
A million plus. You're
Yes.
questioned. Yeah.
Now the questioning is there. However, we also have people that are connected to the financial system.
Yeah. Big
Unfortunately, that is what it is. Many people own some of these banks.
time. Yeah.
And so therefore, as an owner, I may not have a lot of leeway. Just, I mean, sneaking your finances into the system. And so that's a danger. So I wanted to answer your second part,
Yeah.
that what can we do? Because now we have a lot of caution. People will be cautious when handling the 1,000 shillings note.
Yes. Yes. True that.
So therefore, you would want to imagine, people would want to use alternative forms of transactions. Yeah, the M-Pesa, all those kind of
You
things.
swipe.
The swipe.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so that will be the mode of transaction. So when someone gives you 1,000 note from today,
Yeah.
you want to
cautious.
just think twice.
Yeah.
Can I pick it or not?
It's true that.
Because you don't know where it came from.
Wow, very interesting, because now it has actually put some people on the spot on the even the way the SMEs will now be operating, because in this situation where we'll be having oversupply, of course you mentioned inflation. That is something we have to expect, whereby now someone goes to buy a building for 30 billion, 30 million cash from the bag, from the boot, buys the building. But when looking at the rotation, maybe legit money is in the house, hidden somewhere. But now when it comes out here, now the banks supply, you see, supply and demand. We really need to talk about this, because now the policy maker is clear. It will be done and dusted. Now supply and demand, looking at all the banks to be like the central bank going to replace all these millions the bank own to give them these new ones, because it all comes down to the banks. Now, looking at the demand, do you think now, even in the new notes, the demand will also be kind of inconsistent? Because now, of course, we need money, but looking at this money laundering team, the wash team, you know, creativity always comes after some time to be kind of just tapped. What do you think about all this scenario? Because it, from SMEs, from now the demand and the supply, policymaker and the wash now.
Yes, yeah. From the SMEs, of course, you'd expect less transactions in terms of the $1,000 bill. Yeah, so you find that most of these SMEs would prefer the other denominations.
Yeah.
Then your other question is about the demand side of money. Well, in the end, the demand for money will decrease.
Yeah.
Because if I had this much of money, I'll be uncomfortable holding this money with me.
Yeah.
So I would rather transform it into some other asset. Yes, buy shares, do some, get a building, buy land, etc. So the demand for money generally will go down.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but however, people will also be enthusiastic. They'll be happy to see this new, to hold this new currency. And so therefore there'll be a lot of I mean, there will be a shift in terms of the way people transact from the normal way of life.
Wow.
Yeah. So the other thing that requires some urgent maybe attention is the issue of information flow.
Yeah.
You should know that there are people that live in the rural areas, villages deep down in the villages, where such information cannot reach them. All they know is cash. And so therefore, how do you reach out to that person right deep into Kana, who doesn't have maybe, who doesn't have access to such information? So therefore, the issue of information flow is very critical to this, so that by the time it's 3 months down the line, we are actually clear. We are moving to the next stage and say that now we no longer have this.
It's true that.
Yeah. So that people don't get, they are not caught off guard at the end of the day. Yes, because after October, whatever 1,000 bill note you have is just
out.
useless.
It's
Yeah.
out. It's out. Actually, it's zero. Anyway, still we have reports. Some people are going to court, but anyway, story for another day. We'll follow on that up. But now, back to the debt issue, the borrowing, back-to-back borrowing. What's the way forward for Mwananchi?
Well, right now the government needs to be sensitive to what the experts say. Remember, right at the moment we've reached our limit. Debt is the public debt is in its unsustainability level. We've heard that from the CBK governor, the controller of budget, and many experts have raised the red flag. And so therefore the government needs to be sensitive. Can you be able to limit our borrowing? Actually stop it for now, because we need to rethink and refocus. Can you be able to restructure and maybe renegotiate some of the data that we have at the moment so that we can be able to have favorable rates going forward? Now, the other thing that maybe is very critical is now the central bank, the advice of government, because we now need to speak to government and say, look, here we've reached. We don't want to compromise the future generation into a debt repayment cycle.
It's true that.
So, and on the other side, we have a government also that needs to listen and say, this is where we are. Can we be able to now turn back and come back to reality? Yes.
All right, interesting. So, just before we wind this up, is there hope that one day we'll finish this loan? Because we always know about borrowing, but that day we finish paying, we never know about all those days.
From where I sit, I don't think. Because, well, you see, when you look at the Kibaki regime, it was a bit rational in terms of spending. But you see the dynamics are different right now. That we are running a developed system of governance. All these things are coming up. There's pressure. We have not completed the SGR, and you have to do it. We don't have goodwill from Uganda in terms of its completion. So therefore, there's always the pressure for any new government to come in to pump in and try to make an impact through public investments. And so, from where I sit, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Laban Chisang, for coming.
Thank you so much.
We've learned so much, and the new currency notes, goodness. Let's see how things will actually turn, because now that will be very chaotic.
Great.
But for the money laundering team, I think now that days are numbered and things are actually thick. Anyway, we'll see how it goes.
Thank you so much.
So